back to the range. JB.
All right, Brandon. We're moving on from how professional sports being solved, mainly with them dishing out the hefty fines and whatnot. We're going to go into the NFL talk, mainly dealing with the interview process. Now, Miami Dolphins general manager came at Dez Bryant, approached him in a an unprofessional way. I know you want to get to know like your certain players, know all about them, know the background, know where they come from, but you have to ask yourself: do you really want to know all? Like, do you really want to ask like the question that's going to like offend them and it's going to cause an uproar? Apparently so, because that's exactly what he did to Dez Bryant. Now, NFLPA exec DeMaurice Smith conducted a news conference today saying that the interview process should be conducted in a professional manner. Now, I know teams, they want to get that particular player that can help their team out. Because mainly teams, they look at the players mainly as a family. The coach wants to know everything about them. I mean, the good, sometimes they have their faults and whatnot, but you don't come at a player in a way that's going to like hurt their feelings and piss them off. As far as the question that he did ask Dez Bryant, he did conduct himself in a professional manner, saying that, hey, I was upset with that question. I did get mad, but I just didn't say anything. Mainly because of how offended he was. Now, do you agree that the interview process, as far as knowing a player, do you have to know everything about this player?
No, of course not. All you need to know is how they're going to act on and off the field, and will they compete for you. I mean, it's cool to try to get a background about a person, so you know what type of player you're getting if you do decide to draft him. But as far as just, if you want to talk about personal life, it's cool to talk about something personal, but something along the manners of, was your mom this, or was your dad that, and all that's a little bit far. Now if you just ask like if your parents were split, did you come from, was your home broken, or like how was it growing up and all this and all that, that's fine. But to make a direct question, as in if your mom was a prostitute or if your dad was a pimp or just silly shit like that, no, that's crossing the line.
Well, I mean, I agree. I don't agree with that. I think if you want to learn something about a player, you got to ask about it. And I have to agree with what Woody Payne said earlier on Around the Horn. We don't know what the other questions were. We only hear this one question, and we're all blowing up at this guy. We don't know if there was a question beforehand that asked him about it, or we don't know if there was a question afterwards that was something about it, or maybe he even came to him and said, hey, this is, I'm going to ask you some very personal questions. Now, about that, yeah, if it was just that one question that kind of like you're in the interview process and you bust out with, hey, was your mom a prostitute? Yeah, that's a little out of line. But the fact that Dez Bryant hasn't commented on this kind of tells me that we're blowing stuff out of proportion. If it was a really big problem, Dez Bryant would have said this before the draft. This is 3 days after the draft that we're hearing this. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but I just, I can't take any other side. I'm not taking a side, but at the same time, you got to know what's going on with your players. You got to ask, hey, look, you're going to invest so much money into a player. Why wouldn't you want to know everything about this player?
I'll put it like this. To me, if I'm finna interview just for a regular job, if you're finna interview a person for a job, you ask them, so, where are you from? How'd you grow up and all this and all that? You ask them personal questions like that. But then if you just come off, so, did your mom sell her body for money? That's a dumbass question. Drugs nowadays, there's a certain way you can ask about if you come from a broken home, but if your mom sold her body for money, or is she a prostitute, or that right there I don't believe there's any way you can lead up into a question of something like that. Whether, I don't know how many questions he could have asked him. Nobody knows but Brian and whoever else was there. But the fact that you would ask anybody, did their mom sell their body for money, kudos to Brian for not hitting his ass, because I damn sure would have hit his ass. I wouldn't have given a damn. Even Mike Dicker said he would have hit his ass if that was him. But I just believe there's a certain it's certain how far you go to try to get to know a person before you draft them. And then, after you draft them, then you become more of a family to where you can talk more personal about their life. But for a person that you're just interviewing to see if you might draft them, you don't go that damn far. I don't believe you do.
Yeah, there is a certain line that you do not cross. Now, I know during some interview process leading up to the draft, you might want to test the player's ability to see how composed that he can be when the questions start getting a little hard and in depth and whatnot. But there's a certain question that you shy away from because mainly that's one is probably none of your business anyway. But you're gonna find out later on if that is like something that that the player wants to discuss with you. And it's another thing, you hardly know him. You hardly know this player that much. The last thing you need to do or want to do is kind of disrespect them or offend them in a way to the fact that, well, this organization is about this and asking these kind of questions, and I don't want to play for you. So mainly this could be mainly he's probably looking at them like, well, I'm kind of glad Miami did not draft me anyway. So,
well, let's go ahead. I mean, let's go ahead and let's remember, Dez Bryant has no comment about this, so obviously he wasn't offended by this. Yeah, I mean, he was not offended. I mean, if he had a comment, he would have. I mean, as Woody and as Bill, Bill Plaschke could have said today, if they would have been asked that question, they would have walked out the interview. Obviously, Bryant sat there, calmed it, answered the question honestly, and then left. And then when the interview was over, he left. That's just what happened. So I mean, you got to give the guy some credit. If he wasn't bothered by this question and hasn't commented on it yet, and I just think the media needs to stay out of this, kind of let this go, because really, as the media, they're making it a lot worse than it potentially is.
But Brian did say he was mad, but he just didn't say anything.
He just didn't answer the question.
I mean, mainly because he's been consulting with, the Cowboys sports writer Calvin Watkins, who's a part of ESPN Dallas. He's been talking with him mainly with how to approach this situation. I mean, just because he hasn't said anything yet, but I mean, he's probably getting a statement prepared to approach this. I mean, they might not do it like a big hoopla press conference or anything like that. But Dez Bryant did say he was mad about that question.
Yeah, they even printed an article in the Daily Sentinel about Ireland. It was specifically about Bryant, but then there was a portion of the article that talked about the interview, and he said that he was pretty mad, but he didn't worry about it right then and there, and he just, I guess he kind of threw away the question as of now to not comment more about it, because he just started talking about how he was ready to play for Dallas, and that's the best thing that could happen to him. And then they was talking about how he grew up, and then he still has a great relationship with his mom and all that. So I would expect probably a statement or something to come to the media, probably. But if it's to me, I guess if he can control his emotions and show that he's a bigger man than what everybody made him seem before the draft, I think it'll just blow over, and then it'll just be the end of it.
Well, I think really and truly, if he wants to make a statement, he should have done it already. I think you're past that 24-hour window. That now it's not, it's no longer time to comment about it. It's now time to move past it and just kind of, still be pissed off about it. And when you play the Dolphins in a couple of years, bring it down the Dolphins in a couple of years. There's nothing wrong with bringing out your frustration on a single team. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But what I have to say is, really and truly, I'm very concerned with how he kind of, about how everybody's making this big hoopla about it, and Dez Bryant's being cool about it. He went out and said, hey, he may have said, I was upset at the time, but he goes, what did he say now? Okay, I moved past it. That's basically what I'm hearing. He said he moved past it, and if he moved past it, so should the media.
All right, more on the range. Stay tuned.